All right, let's get down to the GLOAT Podcast, ladies and gentlemen, which we don't have much to talk about. August the 1st, 2024. What have we been going through right now as we're speaking? Well, ladies and gentlemen, as we like to talk about, there's only a few topics I like to talk about. Only two of them do have to do with boxing. And the third one is something I've been keeping for a long time. And I decided it took me a long time to try to make this. And I decided to do it right now. And I promised to do a part 3 of this. And I know this is old news. It's only a few months old since last February, March, since this people have talked about. But I do got to talk about it. But I might as well talk about it until I'm done with these segments. Now, this has nothing to do with boxing or topics of something like the other two topics I'm about to talk about. So with that being said, let's get down to business. The first topic is the Summer Olympic Games, is boxing. But before we get to that, we like to report that after July the 31st, Japan was already on to 8 medals, followed with Australia, and China is already the leader since the end of July. As of right now, Japan hasn't done nothing good, still in the top 5. I hope they can stay in the top 10 forever right now, because Japan deserves a little bit of credit to be in the top 10. If they don't make it in the top 10 medal table, we'll never know. America, considering they're not getting a lot of medals done, considering they are getting a lot of silvers and bronze, they're barely not getting a lot of gold medals. But as of the end of August, the 1st right now, as this episode's being talked about, they're actually in second place by China. So interesting enough, but I do believe China has a chance to win the medal table and become first place in their country. So I wish them best of luck. But guys, speaking about countries that deserve chances, we have to talk about something surprisingly, and that is Mexicans in boxing. And guys, Mexican boxers have been fumbling away. Like, we have 2 males and 2 females in each of the weight classes of amateur boxing. And the first one we talk about at the 63.5 kilograms, where we have a boxer that's actually ranked number 8 on the seed, named Miguel Angel Ramirez, and he gets his butt demolished by a guy named Ruslan Abdoev, getting dominated 5 rounds. He's out of competition. Yes, a Canadian boxer defeated Ruslan in the quarterfinals 4-1, but still, yeah, Miguel didn't have no chance of winning that fight. And when watching the footage, when someone told me, it was shocking. But guys, the next weight class up after that is the 71 kilograms, where we have Marco Vardy. He's number 2 in the seed of boxing. And what does he do? Pretty much, he barely squeaks out a split decision against this guy that's from the country of Mozambique, which is an interesting country. I haven't heard this country before, so it's pretty interesting, considering they debuted since the Olympics 3 years ago in Japan. But yeah, Marco barely squeaks out a split decision win, but still, I don't see much of him making it to the top as much as I expected. But it's a win. A win's a win, so you can't argue about that. But there's also a female boxer in the 50 kilogram that goes by the name of Fatima Herrera. Since she was in the round of 32, she barely squeaked out a split decision win against Laura Fuertes from mostly Spain. Squeaks out a 3-2 split decision, and then she loses against a woman that was already in the 16 round at the time, and this woman from Turkey dominates her in all 5 judges' scores. Yeah, it's almost the same thing as that female boxer named Jennifer Lozano that was also in that same wreck, and she got wrecked 5-0 against this woman from Finland that was already in the round of 32, and she defeated someone from Zambia the same time during the round of 32. It's, yeah, ridiculous. Just goes to show you what these female boxers can do to the greatest countries that are that good. But sometimes you have to have a brain once in a while. The final female boxer in this rank right now in Mexico, like this one, this one's a little bit interesting for me because there's nothing much to say about it. Like, guys, I can talk about how we have in the 60 kilograms, we have this Brazilian woman named Beatriz Ferrari. She was already the IBF world lightweight champion. She defeated Del Carmen in April 27th by technical decision to win the IBF female lightweight, and now she's in the Olympics? What? Like, I know people say that Olympic boxers can still perform in amateur boxing, but come on. Like, this is going to be an easy win for Beatriz Ferrari, and she's already in the semifinals. And I'm still going to watch her fight on August the 3rd, which will come in the semifinals. And even there's a Chinese woman taking on a Chinese Taipei woman that same day. And, like, I wish best of luck for any of those Asian females to make a gold medal, because who knows? They even had a North Korean woman that had no business after she got demolished in Netherlands. But man, this, like, there's nothing much I can say about it, about this woman, that she had no business. Like, she came in at the largest weight class at 75 kilograms, the largest weight class in women's boxing, and she got demolished. Citali Ortiz versus Caitlin Parker. And Caitlin Parker, mostly a 28-year-old Australian woman from the Western Australian. Like, there's not a lot of information about this woman, but still, like, she was never ranked at the time, so in the seed, so her getting dominated 5-0 in the round of 16 in the first was just bad enough. Like I said before, the 71 kilogram, there's only one guy left in Mexican, Marco Verdi, but yet again, I don't know. Like, he can take on this guy from India that already had his split decision win the round of 16, but even if he makes it to the quarterfinals, one of them do, but there's just no way, because this British guy named Lewis Richardson, he might have a chance to beat any of them in the semifinals. We do even have an American boxer named Omari Jones. So yeah, there's just, yeah. Like, do we have a downfall for any of these people? It's not like how there's a downfall in Japan because Japanese boxers, because, like, we already have Siwan Okazawa already lost 3-2 against the person that won the round of 32, and he lost from a guy from the country of Jordan. So it is what it is, and, like, not every boxer is gonna be competitively good. Like, you'll be lucky. Like, yeah, it stinks. It really does stink. And even though there's only 2 male boxers in Japan that are competing, and that's one of them. And just to let you viewers know who the second one is like, let me look this up for just a second, because I actually found it. Yeah, Shudai Harada, also from the 57 kilogram, he won and in the round of 16, so now he's in the quarterfinals. But yeah, I wish him best of luck if he has what it takes. So yeah, not every country is going to do every good in every event. It's not like how Japan, female and male Japanese actually failed hardcore in water polo in 2021. But at the end of the day, they were representing their country because they're hosting their country at the time. So they had all boxers go to every division. So it is what it is. So, but yet again, I really can't say much about this topic anymore. Like, it goes to show you, viewers, sometimes your countries are going to do good, but sometimes not in every event. You're not going to be, not every single athlete in each event in your country is going to do that good. You're going to have flops and you're going to have fails. And America is no different. Like, as of right now, by the end of August right now, like, America has already trailed on, only winning 9 gold medals, 15 silvers, and 13 bronze. Yes, they're not winning, but at least they're making top 3 podiums. They scored 37 medals after 7 days a week, and we only have 10 to so more days left of the Olympics coming to an end. So yeah, that's what I can say about this topic. So the third topic, guys, is mostly, guys, I don't want to talk about these type of topics no more. This second topic, this might be the last time I'll ever do a topic like this, doing predictions, but we might as well talk about it. So, like I said before, guys, there's enough people having worries about what will happen to the top 10 heavyweight boxers in the rankings. Now, guys, let's start with number 10, Martin Bakal. So yes, Martin Bakal suffered his first loss way back in 2018 against Michael Hunter for the IBO Intercontinental Heavyweight title when he got knocked out in the final seconds of the 10th round when he sustained an injury on his right shoulder and Hunter had a cut above his right eye, but he managed to finish him in the final seconds of the final round. It didn't stop him. Well, Martin took some months off, but it didn't stop him to take on a Polish contender in his backyard in April 2019 to get back a big top win. Yes, he took time off, taking on journeyman fighters of Ronnie Hernandez and Kevin Johnson and Sergey Kuzmin. That's now a bust. But after his win against Tony Yoka in 2022, 2016 Brazilian gold medalist in the Olympic Games, became a bust flop. Then he took on Ihor the Hulk from the country of Germany, that was born in Ukraine last year ago, only to defeat Carlos Takam. He did good. But what's going to happen August the 3rd? Who knows? As for Michael Hunter at number 9, let's talk about him. Michael Hunter has not been suffered a loss since April 2017 against the WBO World Cruiserweight title fight with Alexander Usyk. It's great that they went 12 rounds of distance, even though there were rumors of how Hunter was ruled down in the 12th round, but still, nothing much to say. It didn't stop him from winning out a bunch of fights, but then he decided to leave the Cruiserweight in 2018. A year later, he goes heavyweight, and yeah, there were some wins. Like I said before, he defeated Martin Bakal that year and had wins with Sergey Kuzmin, which he went 12 rounds with him in 2019. So that's another fight we can talk about how Kuzmin was a bust. He had an Alexander Poviekin draw in 2019, but I still believed he had some chances of becoming champion again, even though he hasn't, but he might have a chance. But after his split decision draw against Jerry Forrest, which was months after Jerry Forrest scored a draw against Joey Zhang, I did have problems. Then he would never box again until 2023, and by 2024, he's just taken on barely competition. Then he goes to Don King Promotions, fight for the WBA Gold World Heavyweight title, and dominate Cassius Chaney by 10 rounds of boredom. Yeah. Fun fact, Michael Hunter also fought in another boxing show called the TCL Pro Boxing, which is another professional boxing division. No. I meant to talk about a different... No, wait, never mind. Wait. Is there another... I forgot. There's also another boxing division around the time in 2024 where he fought, but then he lost. I can't find the information. You viewers understand what I'm talking about. At this moment, Michael Hunter's past his prime. He's boxed for 11 years. He's 36 years old. Don't know what to say about him. What about number 8, Joey Zhang? Well, Joey Zhang, yes, he's made some recoveries. He did got controversial loss against Phil Pergovich, but he recovered. He scored knockouts with Joe Joyce, and he knocked out Joseph Parker twice. It was a close fight for what it was. He lost, but he came back with Deontay Wilder in June, and he's still back in the ranks. After 10 years of boxing since 2014 to 2024, is his time up? At that moment, when I saw him lost against Joseph Parker, I was like, it's probably best to hang up the gloves. We also heard that he might have a rematch with him because Joseph Parker might want a rematch. We'll get to that in just a second because number 7 on our list, which we're going to talk about Martin Bakal again, is Jared Anderson. Jared Anderson, interesting wins from here or there, and he did interesting stuff. Knocked some undefeated fighters once in a while with Vladimir Tershkin in 2021. and he managed to up his game with interesting wins with Jerry Forrest to show how someone can take care of Jerry Forrest. He takes on George Arias, Charles Martin, former champion, last year ago, and then a month and several weeks later, he defeats Audrey Rudenko. That's already a bum. But then in 2024, he gets arrested for DUI. There is video footage on YouTube of him arguing with the cops about him taking the test if he's drunk or not, and it was embarrassing. Yes, he would recover and go on against Riyad Murray in April, but yet again, even if he does defeat Martin Bacall, I just don't know if his body can handle it. He just reminds me of Mike Tyson and a guy that's already in a horrible problem in his career, and he's going to end up the same way as how Buster Douglas knocked out Tyson in Japan in 1990. So who knows? I can see him win this fight against Martin Bacall, and maybe he might get a title shot next year. And probably because if he wins, not only Martin Bacall is number one in the WBA, he wins by the month of September the 1st when the updates are up, he'll be number one. So who knows? Number 6, speaking about Joey Zhang, is Joseph Parker. So here's the thing. We already know Joseph Parker, former champion in 2016, defeats a great win against Andy Ruiz. Out of nowhere, he retains his belt a couple of times and against a nobody. And then he takes on Huggy Fury, Tyson Fury's brother. And at that moment, it's like, oh, okay, not bad. It was a close fight. He loses against Anthony Joshua, but at least it was by decision because he was the first guy to go to 12 rounds decision against AJ. So you got to give him credit. He lost against Dillian White 4 months later, but still by decision. It was a good fight. He got knocked down in round 2 and again in round 9, came back in round 12 and knocked White down. So people thought he still had what it took. He still took some time against defeating nobodies with Alex Wapay. Junior Fa became a bum. Dare Tesora twice in 2021. He lost against Joe Joyce, which shocked some fans thinking he had no business fighting again. By 2023, he had a huge tons of wins, and his Deontay Wilder win was no exception. And even after recovering from Joey Zhang, he was like the kryptonite boxer. You knock him down, he's gonna get back up. And that's what Joseph Parker reminds me. And the reason I do feel like a rematch should be allowed is obvious. Because if Alexander Usyk doesn't fight back the belts and he might strip him, maybe the WBO belt will be on the line if they put Joseph and Jilly for a rematch for the WBO belt next year. That would be something moneymaker, not just for the country of China to watch their fighter go for a belt, but New Zealand. You know how much ratings and money that's going to make? That would be amazing. What about number 5? Well, number 5, Daniel Dubois. I don't know what to say about him. He got suffered, takes on Japanese fighter in 2019, gets a win back against some other rando. He gets early wins, lost against Joe Joyce by injury, this or that. A couple nobody wins in 2021, which one of them was a WBA interim belt, which got him a title shot with Trevor Bryan. Bum fighter. He barely wins the fight against Kevin Morena when he was knocked down 3 times in the first round. To this day, I don't know why referee Howard Foster at that time gave him the win there, only to lose against Alexander Usyk last year ago. But he recovered, took on Jarrell Miller, and got that controversial dumbass win in June the 1st against Phil Pergovich. And now he's the IBF World Heavyweight Champion. And now we're having a title shot against him and Anthony Joshua. What the hell, man? British versus British fighter? We've already have former British champions. We have to have new countries fighting for champion. Phil Pergovich deserved that win. Speaking about British boxers, Tyson Fury, no comment. He had that time. He had title wins. He's a 2-time champ. Had a Francis Ngannou. Lost against Usyk. Why should we have a rematch with him after he had a bar fight last month? Yeah, nothing to say about that. How about number 3, Ajit Caballel? Ajit Caballel, he already had his marks in boxing. Interesting wins in 2016 and 17. Thailand with Herv Hubix, Christian Lewandowski. He defeats Derek Chisora in 2017. And he ups up his ante in an interesting fight a year later against a nobody. He retains his EBU titles a bunch of times by the end of 2019. with Audrey Rudenko. In 2020, he was going to hit on a title with Tyson Fury, but Wilder was already still on that controversy with his egg weight shape form and such, and the costume in the second fight. He took on former contender out Kevin Johnson, went on 2022, but in 2023 was the big problem. Agro and Samaki already knocked him down, and he was almost hurting out Adrian Cabello so much. And Cabello managed to recover in the third round and win the fight. So when you see him fight against Arslanbek Makhmudov in December, you think to yourself, how the heck did he win that fight? Then he comes out against Frank Sanchez in May, and now he's a 25-0 fighter. And at this moment, I'm like, yeah, he might not have what it takes, but as a German fighter from another country, let's give him a chance. He's 25-0, so let's give him a chance and see if he's got what it takes. He's earned his spot, so let's give him a title shot next year. Or maybe a year before in 2026, if he's ready. Number 2, Anthony Joshua. After suffering out losses to Andy Ruiz, gets a rematch, this or that, his career is on spark. I understand why he's in the top rankings, but when you look at it, it's interesting. His fights with Alexander Usyk fights were interesting enough, and him coming back defeating Jermaine Franklin, Robert Helenius, and Otto Wallin in 2023, it brought up some spunk. Fight against Ngannou, no comment, and now Dubois. It does stink that we have 2 British former heavyweight champions. At this moment, I just wish it was Filip Hrgović versus Anthony Joshua in September. I really do wish that was the case. I don't know why we have to see 2 British fighters that are former heavyweight champions boxing for a heavyweight title. I just don't understand. That's not going to draw interest. It's just going to draw hate, and other people from the countries around the world are not going to watch that. And I just don't feel interested in watching it. It's a cheaty thing to cheat your fighters and your promoters into this. Filip Hrgović deserved it, and Anthony Joshua kind of did, but Darren Dubois didn't. And now we get to number 1, Alexander Usyk. Usyk, out of nowhere, started his career in 2013, and he was banging up wins against guys that had more wins than losses, even if they were journeymen or jobbers. He was already winning out fights crazy enough from 2014 when he was in the heavyweight, and then went back to cruiserweight by 2014. He wins on fights. He's going here against Johnny Muller, Pedro Julio Rodriguez, but then we takes on Gulowski in his backyard in Poland for the WBO title, gets it. It's amazing. He retains the title that same year with Michael Hunter in 2017, another shot, 3rd title defense against Marco Hulk, Marius Briedis in the title picture in the semifinals of the tournament. Then he dominates Murat Gassiev, and that was just crazy enough. But his Tony Bellew fight might have been one of his second hard, interesting fights I've ever expected, and it was a good way to defend his undisputed cruiserweight and go to heavyweight. Chaz Witherspoon, no comment. Derek Chisora, it surprised a lot of fans of how Chisora did a good job on Usyk. And yes, Usyk title champion, and yes, Dubois and now Fury. 3 title defenses, and this, it is interesting. Even though he lost his IBF belt, at this moment he's 37 years old, and he's boxed since 11 years. I think at this moment, he should just let boxing just take a hiatus and find new fighters, because like at this moment we need new players in the game. So we'll just have to see and what will happen in the future. So after all those 2 topics, after 23 minutes of talking, guys, I think it's time for the last topic to come in the last half hour. I guess in the last half hour of this podcast, guys, is going to be interesting. We have liftoff, and it's going to be interesting enough. Guys, I know this topic is old, and I did promise to do a part 3, and I might as well do it now. But guys, when you viewers hear the term word Avatar: The Last Airbender, Netflix, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? 8 episodes, and a lot of them are just out of control. February the 22nd, they bring out 2 episodes for each director. Like Michael Goy directs out episode 1 and 2 of Aang and Warriors, and when I watch the episodes, I'm like, okay, you look at it. Now, I've already explained it, how it was ridiculous of how the movie in 2009, The Last Airbender, had a little bit of better interest. It's like the execution was bad. But guys, here's the problem. What makes this stuff hard about making a movie that was in a cartoon is that you have people dressed up in almost like actors are dressing up like they're in a party, like they're cosplaying their favorite character. So when you have Aang or Katara and they're dressing up in their colored uniforms, like in a movie or even like in the TV show of it, you've probably wondered yourself, well, it is a little bit too bright. It did give me a headache because cosplaying something that was already a cartoon show is hard enough. It's not like if you actually said that Gilligan's Island was a cartoon show before it was a TV show or a movie. You think to yourself, how are they going to execute it when it was a cartoon? So you have to have people saying that you have to cosplay in these costumes and such. And you have to portray the character like I think it's really hard. It really is. It's not like how Star Wars became like when the prequels actually came out. And by the way, Emperor Lemon actually uploaded a video of Jar Jar's the Key talking about the prequels and how Jar Jar Binks ruined Star Wars and such and something like that. And like if you viewers see people dressed up like Jedis in it, yes, it's like they're cosplaying characters, but they're playing in their character formats. Like even when after the prequels were done and they decided to do Star Wars, the Clone Wars in cartoon, at the end of the day, you have the voice actors and the actors that already play the characters. But when you have voice actors actually not being actors, acting in the movie or even the Netflix TV show, it goes to wonder it's probably hard. So when you watch the Gilligan's Island and how I actually did saw the cartoon episodes, some of the cartoon episodes of Gilligan's Island, and they were interesting. Like they had their own voice actors, except Tina Louise and Don Wells. They were never there, but you get what I mean. It was pretty interesting in hindsight. But when you viewers look at The Last Airbender and you see actors from Zach Tyler to Jack DeSena and Mako, the guy that passed away before season 3 that played General Iroh and someone took over for him, rest in peace, and Jill Murphy, Dee Bradley, these persons aren't actors, they're voice actors. So when you do have characters that are people like Gordon Cormier, Ian Owsley, Dallas Liu, and no offense, I'm not saying that they're bad actors, but when they're portraying characters that they did not portray, they didn't voice act these characters, it makes it hard. Like you're trying to put yourself into this character, but you have to understand who the director is and who the person is working on this project to make you be in this picture of how they want you to portray this character. If you're trying your best to portray the character in a cartoon film, but they try to improvise so much of this stuff, it stinks. And guys, it's really dumb when I actually see the intros and such. Like, it's great that they bring out that Katara saying water, earth, air, fire, and saying that long ago, like my grandmother told us long ago, 4 nations live together in harmony. At this moment, not bad. But then suddenly, during that first episode of episode 1, Aang, it's ridiculous of how they have Aang entering inside this big igloo, and the grandmother is telling this story again, which we don't have to listen to this story. Like, like guys, if you viewers haven't seen episode 1, you might not know what I'm talking about, so watch it, but still, it's ridiculous. But I will say, though, Aang and the Warriors were actually much better episodes. I wish they actually did not decided to go back into the beginning part of 100 years ago when Aang was with when Aang was with his people, and then they decided, he was going to go out, catch some fresh air with his friend Appa, which that's not what happened in the cartoon film. And then the Fire Nation attacked, which hilarious or not. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm not saying it's bad of how Katara and Sokka crashed in to a huge block of iceberg, but their boat didn't get destroyed like in the cartoon film. And so surprisingly, they found Aang and they brought him to the igloo when he was cold, but they forgot that Appa was never there. And by the way, guys, you know what's kind of crazy? Like, I will say, though, I wish they decided to not do that. Like, guys, if they were trying to put moments into Aang being back with his people, they should have put in moments where when Aang went back to his home with his new friends, they would have been, like, they should have cut the time down to an hour because, like, the end of episode 1 ended so dramatically that we didn't get to know everything about the whole place like they showed us in episode 3, like when they took us inside that temple with all these statues and idols of all of these characters, like Avatar characters, and it was so crazy. And that's when they met Momo. Like, I will be honest though, guys, I kind of enjoyed the movie The Last Airbender, where they decided that Momo came out of nowhere and it was hilarious. I'm even surprised that they decided not to have Sokka chase after Momo in the 2009 movie, which I would have found it to be hilarious. To be honest, I think the 2009 movie did a little bit better than the Netflix moment, because it was like, oh, Aang jumped and saw the whole craziness. Like, the Netflix did do something like that, but when you viewers watch the episode, it was interesting. But we never get to see Momo until episode 2, so I don't know. I will say, though, guys, Warriors was an interesting episode. It was interesting that they decided to hire someone to be the mother of the Kyoshi Island, which is interesting, and which is weird because we never saw her in the cartoon film, show. So it is interesting that they get to do that. Interesting that they get to bring in interesting characters from Kyoshi and Zuki, and it was interesting. And guys, I know they were trying to not overdo comedy humor. They didn't want to make it turn into a kids act. Like, the Avatar The Last Airbender, Netflix wasn't meant to overdo stuff like in episode 4 where Aang is already popular with the kids, this or that, and then he's riding on this huge, large water creature in the water at the time. I know Netflix wasn't going for that, and neither the movie was, too. And that's a lot of stuff what I like. That's what I liked when I was a kid. Yes, I know they were trying to make this less humorous. And at the end of the day, like, I don't know. Like, Michael Goy did an okay job directing the 2 episodes, but dude, this other director, Jabber Raisani, I didn't get it. Omashu and Into the Dark was like going to 2 locations, and when you look at it, it's like, so they're going to Omashu and they meet multiple characters from other places. Like, hey, we meet this character when they went to the other North Temple, you know, the kid that can't walk but he can fly, and he sees his father, you know, the big beard guy and such, and the guy that's inventing the Fire Nation blip and such. It's like, oh, yay, they're in Omashu, ? And then we meet Jet, and then around the time we have Katara and Jet going to the woods, which is like a couple miles away from Omashu, ? That just makes it a little bit interestingly confusing. When you viewers watch the 2 episodes, it is interesting to have sort of an interesting fact to it, but I don't know. And guys, what makes it weird is that, guys, when you viewers watch the show from season 1, like, guys, the reason the cartoon show is called Book 1, Water, is it's all about Aang learning how to waterbend. Guys, I feel like the movie did a much better job making the movie of Aang learning waterbending. Hell, guys, when they even made it to the North Pole to learn waterbending, why were they there in the first place? To teach Aang waterbending. And even in the 2009 movie, The Last Airbender, or is it 2010? Yeah, it's 2010. Apologize for that. In 2010, they already brung Aang into learning waterbending. Like, they're showing waterbending, they're showing this or that. Like, yeah, the animation, the effects were decent, if that's what Sokka would say, but at least they were teaching Aang waterbending in the 2010 movie. Yes, the movie sucked, but at least they were teaching Aang to waterbend. You watch these 8 episodes in Netflix, not one bit. It was all about Katara learning to do waterbending, and now she's finally learning it. What about learning Aang? And guys, what even makes it crazy is you go to episode 5, and you have Rosianna Liang, if I pronounce your name wrong. This New Zealand film director comes in as the 3rd director for episode 5, Spirited Away and Masked. And then we come to episode 7 and 8, which was Jet Wilkinson that directed the last 2 episodes. It's just crazy when you look at this. Because, like, at one point, you go to Aang, Katara, and Sokka are now in the spirit world, which is kind of weird because it's like they're bringing us back to that moment where a spirited creature was attacking a town and Aang didn't know the spirit world as much, but he entered in it by mistake. And you viewers know about the village being destroyed in season 1. Well, they decided to up the ante and skip over season 2, where Sokka is looking at this fox spirit with several tails and an interesting thing around its neck talking to him. I'm like, are we skipping season 2? Are we going there? And guys, there's even some people, I even saw some YouTube reactors that were even reacting to this whole thing, and they're saying, oh, hey, I remember that. Oh, yeah, I remember that. How would you even remember it from season 1? How do you not know that these scenes are from season 2? They even met the owl, the guy, the owl man from the library. He was never in season 1 to begin with. It doesn't make no sense to put them there in the first place if they were never in season 1. I react to these YouTubers like Real Rejects, Blind Wave, even Kaylin and Eric. I actually did love their content videos, no offense. Or even Mish and D, awesome females. I love those females. They're great. Go sub to them. But I don't ask for subscribers, but yeah. If you don't want to, it's up to them. If you want to sub to them, sub. It doesn't matter. And there's plenty more. Hell, even when I watch Real Rejects, which is now my least favorite YouTube reactors because he has, like, they're reacting to these 8 episodes and going, oh, I remember this. It's like, how do you even remember any of this stuff from season 1? Because I remember some of those parts from season 2, but we're in season 1. You viewers get what I mean? Like, at least they understood the moments when they were in the north, when they were reacting to it, stating, I thought we were supposed to teach Aang waterbending. They didn't teach Aang waterbending one moment. It's ridiculous. It's humorous. And guys, I will say though, during the end of the final episode, when you do see it, it's great that you have Iroh doing everything in his power to make sure that the moon spirit is not killed. And because it is funny when you watch the movie, because guys, when you watch the movie of 2010 and then the Netflix of it, you look at both ways with General Iroh and Zhao, and you just, the perspectives are hilarious. You have Zhao killing a fish in front of, while Iroh is watching him and he's yelling no. In the Netflix version, it's far better than you expect. And by the way, guys, what's even weird, guys, remember that scene where when Iroh was actually arrested and this guy takes a rock out of the ground and he puts it on over Iroh's head and he's about to kill him? like, the effects were interesting, but the guy's acting and him putting his hands up, and when you look at it, it almost looks like he's not putting his character in. Like, he's not struggling on holding on the rock. It's like he's keeping his hands up still for some reason. It just seemed a little bit... Like, guys, if you're trying to earthbend, you have to pretend that you're holding onto a rock. Just because someone's telling you to keep your hands here doesn't mean you have to pretend that you're struggling on picking up the rock and just holding up there. But this guy's holding it on top of Iroh's head, about to bring it down, and he's hesitating. I'm sure some of you viewers never saw that scene, but I've seen it, and it was ridiculous. Guys, I feel like the only failures that are not failures in the Avatar franchise is Iroh and Zuko. Like, the relationships are great. Like, it's great that you bring that flashback when Zuko walks up to Iroh while in the Fire Nation. He's telling him he's sorry about his son, and he tells this or that, and then blah, blah, blah. And he's saying, and it's like he's telling him, he gave me this medal for being the best, this or that. And then he goes next to Iroh and stands with him. That was a great touching moment. So in hindsight, you can say that there were some executions that were good because at least they were doing an okay job. Guys, what about the cosplays? Guys, what makes the movie in 2010 interesting is that I didn't have a problem. Like, guys, you viewers have to understand one thing. About trying to put critical stuff about anything, because, understand, I was only 11 years old when it came out, and I watched it on TV during Nickelodeon. And I didn't have a problem with Katara and Sokka dressing up like they're not wearing, like they are wearing Eskimo type stuff, but not color blue. I love that they decide not to overput colors in the Netflix version because it seemed too cosplay-like. And even though Aang, you can barely see Aang's tattoos, but even though when Aang enters, or Aang, which you like to call him, Aang, he comes out and you see him with this amazing arrow on his head lighting up. At least some of the effects of the movie were great. There were some humorous stuff in The Last Airbender, the movie, when they were in the woods and this girl is running towards them, protecting them because she's getting chased after these people and such. And there were some interesting times for that. It was funny. And it wasn't all bad. There were some interesting moments, but the thing is, guys, I think when it started dying down, it started getting harder by the minute. Because you viewers have to understand, the Avatar world is a planet not like ours. It's different. But guys, when you're doing 8 episodes or doing one full movie and and the whole plot of the movie is to learn waterbending, but you have to go to the North Pole, you have to, guys, keep this in mind. There's 20 episodes in each book season of the Avatar: The Last Airbender. Well, 21 in season 3, but still, it's hard to cram up a full 2-hour or even a 1 hour and 43-minute film where you have to go through place after place, because when you watch this show and the Netflix version of it and the movie, it's like the world is small. So when you have Jet in the woods with his buddies a mile away from Omashu, it just seems like the world is small. Just too small. And it really does give me... it's a hard thing for me to sell, because I just really can't put down the question. And guys, you want to know what's even weird about the ending of the Avatar, which was the final episode of season 1 that made it interesting, like Legends? like, what makes it interesting about the moon spirit and how she sacrificed herself in the first episode, in the cartoon version, yes, it gets interesting. Like she kisses Sokka, ends it, and she goes. Iroh is there, Katara is there, and they watch her die and help Aang to destroy the Fire Nation. In the movie, yes, they kiss, so at least Sokka and Moon Spirit kissed, and then they just let her go. They let her do whatever. In the Netflix version, they decided to improvise. Like, they kiss, and then Sokka's feet are stuck in ice because he doesn't want her to get in. And then hours later, he's released, and then he talks to this man. He's saying, like he's telling this guy that she sacrificed herself for all of us. Me, I watched it happen. Like, seriously, is Sokka trying to make this moment about him? Like, he's saying, oh, yeah, my feet were stuck. She put ice on my feet and I couldn't get out. I couldn't stop her. I watched it happen on my eyes. Is Sokka trying to... Is this character trying to make this moment all about him? Does Sokka do that in the cartoon film? Or even in the movie? I know they're trying to improvise some interesting things here. And guys, I will say though, there is one interesting scene I found really interesting. Guys, remember how... the episode in cartoon where Sokka's sick and then Katara's sick as well, and Aang runs to get help and finds frogs, but then he gets caught and now he's in jail. But then, the blue spirit with a mask helps him. It's obviously Zuko, and he helps him. Yeah, it is interesting when you watch that and the versions are different. Because, guys, the cartoon version of it and the movie is different, and the Netflix version is different from both perspectives, because you have to understand, in the movie, Aang is trying to learn waterbending and he doesn't know what to do, so he leaves his friend. He leaves his friends, takes his bison, and goes to a ancient something and says this or that, and then suddenly he gets caught by the Fire Nation, and the person he was talking with just leaves the room when the Fire Nation came. Like, that doesn't make sense why Aang would do that, to leave his friends, unless if it was important. The only reason Aang left his friends in the cartoon is because they were sick, and he found frogs to help them so they can suck it. And of course he did. In the movie and the Netflix movie of it, show, they're both different sides, but at least the battles are different. You have him cutting rope, doing this. It's even interesting in the cartoon version of it, because you have Aang not scared of Zhao. He blows fire and scares them away. In the movie, he's just standing still, just afraid little child that's afraid because the director from India told him to not do nothing stupid and such. And then the Netflix version, we bring back Aang, the one we know and love, and he scares them off, this or that. And then suddenly we have the blue spirit saving him. And then, of course, boom, gets hit in the head by an arrow, and that's it. At least the movie and the Netflix did provide something similar to the cartoon version of it, if you like to say that. But what makes the Netflix version really interesting is that, guys, if you're a child or someone that has never saw the original cartoon show and you actually watch the Netflix version before the cartoon version, the scene later cuts to a house where Aang is in a house and Zuko wakes up, and then Aang apologized to him that he stole Zuko's book when he left the ship due to the iceberg thing, this or that. And by the way, guys, I will say though, speaking about that episode, when Zuko actually stopped Aang from leaving the ship during the end of episode 2 in the cartoon, and then the ship was destroyed. At least in the Netflix version, Zuko didn't stop to knock Aang out. Like, he hires someone to shoot a fireball, and he knocks him out, but his friend saved him. Only in the movie is a lot different than the Netflix version. But at least they had Zuko in this character in the Netflix version more serious because his idea is to take the Avatar and capture him. But what makes this moment interesting in that scene, like, he wakes up, this or that, tells him, and it almost looked like it was a deleted scene. Like, guys, I'm sure some of you viewers haven't heard about this, but guys, remember season 2, episode 19, which was the second final episode of The Last Airbender cartoon, where Aang is learning from this person, warning him to enter into the Avatar world with the Gura, and then suddenly he's about to get all his chakras in, but then he gets interrupted when he hears that Katara is in trouble. There was actually information that someone had art, that there was a deleted scene that showed Aang looking back in the past when he was with his friends and Boomy and all his other friends, and he's riding on his bison, and they're all having fun, they're all doing this, and then he turns around and he sees King Boomy all skeleton corpse with the medallion on around his neck. Like, that's creepy. Whoever thought of that, thank God it didn't make it to production, but can you viewers imagine if the Netflix version is going to do the same thing, and they're going to release that, have Aang think about his past, he turns around and he sees his friend Boomy corpsed, like in episode 3 when he actually saw his friend die and the corpse, because they actually did show his corpse in episode 3 of season 1, which was a huge nightmare. It did creep me out when I was a kid when I saw that, but thank God they didn't show that again during that episode. It was, if you viewers haven't heard the history about that, oh man. Guys, can you imagine if Avatar: The Last Airbender on Netflix is gonna do that? They're gonna release that deleted thing that never made to production, and they're gonna release it. Dude, that's crazy. And I'm sure a lot of you fans don't even know what I'm talking about. Well, this is what this reminded me of. Like, seeing Aang protect Zuko and save him from after getting hit with an arrow. He's in a house. They have a conversation. I did not remember this. This was almost like a deleted scene in the cartoon version. And it actually was pretty good. And, of course, Zuko got upset, this or that, and trying to attack him, and Aang knocks him out again. Then we see them on a boat ride, and Aang does that dialogue like in the cartoon, telling him, oh, this or that. Hey, if we were still friends back in the day, you think we would have been friends? And then Zuko shoots a fireball at him, and that. I will say, though, in the movie, The Last Airbender it was great that they had Zuko shoot a fireball at him. So I think he shot a fireball. It's been a long time since I saw the movie, so I have to go back and watch it. So don't question me about that. But yeah, I will say, though, they did executed some good moments in the scenes. So at the end of the day, I wouldn't call it a failure for most of it. But should it be interesting? Like, guys, the Netflix version did have some interesting critical reception when it came to Rotten Tomatoes on reviewers. Like, look at this. Metacritic already weighed the average of a 55 to 100, with some indicating mixed and average reviews. Hell, even a reviewer named Variety opened that while it wasn't as bad as the 2010 film, it will leave fans wishing the streamer had left Diamartino and Konietzko's masterpiece alone. At the end of the day, they're not wrong. And I wish they did leave that alone, because I wish it shouldn't have been there in the first place. It shouldn't have. because it was a pain in the butt. Now, guys, at the end of the day, are the viewership numbers and ratings and the money, was it better than the movie? Well, guys, before I end this podcast in a few minutes, I'm going to look up information for both the movie and the Netflix version. So, the show and the Netflix did top the weekly global Netflix from February 19th to 25th with 154 million hours of watched by 21.2 million views in its first week. During its second week, the series remained atop, but viewership decreased at 144.2, which is not bad. Well, not bad in hours. It did went under 20, just barely, at 19.9 million views, which they failed to stay at 20, but come on, it's not that bad, okay? They did rank among the 10 in 92 countries in top 10s and number 1 in 76 countries. It thus amused 298.6 million watch hours at 41.1 million viewers in less than 2 weeks in its release. Nielsen reported that on the streaming charts for the week of that 19th and 25th of February, the show was number 1 in the originals of category and also number 1 overall with 2.56 billion minutes viewed. And that included myself because I watched all 8 episodes as well. So it's pretty interesting when you look at this and you do look at it as an interesting thing. And guys, while I'm talking about it, you know what I think season 2 should do for Netflix if they do decide to do a season 2? They have to make sure that the quality and the lighting won't be effective in some scenes because, guys, I can barely see Appa. Like, guys, Appa is not that much of a hard creature to look at when you have a flying bison that carries everyone in place after place through the clouds, and the young casts are up in tasks for doing this or that. But because understanding the landscapes of that, you have to make sure. And even though the AIs might not be that bad for making Appa, again, was Appa's character in the movie better than the Netflix version? It's up to you viewers to decide. As for the movie, and guys, I have talked a little bit how bad stuff talked about the movie, but if I had to, it would have to be here for another hour if I want to talk about it. The movie itself in 2010 had a $150 million budget. But surprisingly, the box office went to $319.7. The box office grossed at $131 million in the United States and $187,900,000. This is what I meant to say, $187,900,000 in other countries, making thereof that total of money, as I just said. On its opening day in the United States, they made like $16.6 million and ranking the 5th overall in Thursday Open and placed second behind the Twilight Saga Eclipse, which is also titled, as some people also say, that is also one of the worst movies of all time. But yet again, that I'm going to talk about the awards in just a few minutes. Its opening 3 day and the 4th of July and all weekends did had some accumulated $40 million at the time. Following Monday gross, they went to $11 million at 54% of its total gross. They also debuted at number 2 behind on July the 1st with Twilight Saga and opening internationality at 923 sites. They estimated 9 to 8 million, in which 870 sites in Russia were making it number 1 in the film. They also grossed $9.4 million in weekends in international markets, and like I said before, it was also the 12th highest gross in 2010. There was also their 4th highest grossing in movies, in Nickelodeon movies, with SpongeBob and the Sponge of Water, Out of Water, 2015, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in 2014, and The Adventures of Tintin in 2011. So yeah, so not bad. But guys, what about the awards? Well, around 2010, they went to Teens Choice Awards for Choice Summer Movie, and the movie was nominated. They also went to International Film Music Critics Association with the film's music composition of the year for Flow Like Water. I did like that, by James Newton Howard. Howard was also nominated for Best Original Score for a fantasy science fiction horror film. Both were nominated. Noah Ringer, the guy that played Aang, and he was also in another movie with, you guessed it, Harrison Ford in the Cowboys and Aliens. Which, fun fact, that movie, even though that came out in 2011, that would be Noah's final film. Considered the budget was $163 million. They made $174 million in the box office, but not better than the other films. Also, it's interesting because Noah Ringer was also part in 2011 for the SkyKid.com Coming of Age Best Actor, and he actually won because of the movie. Young Kids' Choice Awards for Best Performance, he was nominated for that for leading young actor, and he was also involved as the Golden Raspberry Award for Worst Screen Couple with him and Katara, which was nominated, so he won 1 out of 3. Also, the Young's Choice Awards also had Gabrielle, the woman that was also Katara, for the supporting young actress, which was also part of that as well. Both her and Noah were nominated, but guys, the real nominations came in the 31st Golden Raspberry Award, which they were nominated big time. Now, guys, to let viewers know, the Raspberry Award are actually nominated for everything. Worst Picture, Worst Actor, Worst Actress, Worst Supporting Actor, Worst Supporting Actresses, Worst Screen Couple, Worst Prequel, Remake, Worst Director, Worst Screenplay, Worst Eye-Gouging Misuse of 3D. You name it, it's there. And guess what, guys? Both The Last Airbender and Twilight Saga Eclipse, considered they're both high movies at the time, had 9 nominees. And you want to know what's crazy? Considering Eclipse and Last Airbender tied for the most nominees, Twilight Saga did not win a lot of awards that day. They've only managed to squeak out barely just, like, if I'm actually being honest, they had to only just get no more than just a couple. And surprisingly, with all the crazy stuff, they only managed to win out 1, and that was Jackson Rathbone. That was the only person that won the nominees. Valentine's Day, Sex and the City 2 also had problems that they won multiple awards, but The Last Airbender not only got nominated 9 times, they won 5 awards. And those awards were Worst Picture with Frank Marshall, Sam Mercer, and M. Night Shyamalan. M. Night was also nominated for Worst Director and Screenplay, which he also won. Worst Picture, Director, Screenplay, both win. Dev Patel, that guy that played Zuko, was nominated for Worst Supporting Actor, but he didn't win, thank God. But Jackson Rathbone, the guy that was also in the Twilight Saga, he won that award for the group. And also Worst Supporting Actress, Nicola Petz, which is actually the other female that played. Well, do I have to say anything about it? Well, to be honest, she was actually the character I meant to say. Nicola Peltz was the player that played Katara, and Gabrielle, the other, that was the one that played the Moon Spirit. My bad. She didn't win, thank God. The entire cast for Worst Screenplay, Screen Couple, Worst Screen were also nominated that day. They didn't win. Actually, The Last Airbender was also nominated for Worst Prequel, Remake, Ripoff, or Sequel, nominated. But they were last nominated for the Worst Eye-Gouging Misuse of 3D. And that was their 5th award they won. So, yeah, success. So even though the movie didn't do good, but the box office was there, so I guess it was a success. I think when it comes to it, you have to have the right people to work the job, and I think that's what suffered as a failure. So, and even though the Netflix version had some problems, but I think what makes it interesting is that that the Avatar, The Last Airbender, and the franchise has had a lot of controversy. And after they had to end with The Legend of Korra during the final episode of season 4, when they decided to have two girls and a gay romance in the final minutes of the show, of the series finale of The Legend of Korra, and when you watch that and you look back at these other things, yeah, there's so much controversy that the Avatar franchise has been in problems ever since the show ended in 2008. But at the end of the day, guys, that's a story for another time. Thanks for watching part 3 of this. And that is it for our show. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching this full out and 1 hour podcast. I hope you viewers don't mind the first 20 minutes of boredom when it comes to boxing. We just hope Mexican boxers can come back in 2028 to prove themselves to all the American audience, because that's where the Olympic Games are going to happen in 2028. And with everything going on, guys, we just hope for everyone else and all professional boxers, wish them good luck in the rankings. And August the 3rd, we're going to have Jared Anderson, Martin Bacot to be involved in their title shot. So we'll have to wait and see for that. But as for the Avatar and the Netflix version, we're going to have to wait and see what information is going to lie next time. So with everything else, thank you, viewers, for watching this episode. And with that being said, FoxWolf out. Oh, yeah, and one other thing. Before I end this episode, guys, I do like to say one thing, guys. Guys, remember the video game NASCAR Season 3, NASCAR 2003 season, which is the #1 best-selling game by Sierra? I did show video of this. Here's the video. I'm actually working on doing a project of doing a racing series. So if you viewers have ideas for it, let me know in the comments and we'll see what will come of it. So I'm thinking about doing a gaming of it. So keep that in mind. So we'll see what happens, guys. And with that being said, FoxWolf out.